Alright, in the next few slides, we are going to be looking at some issues which happen because of multithreading. So, multithreading is basically dividing a process into multiple threads. We saw a lot of benefits of threading. We saw there is more output, inter-thread communication is easier than inter-process communication. The context switch overhead is not there. We saw all those benefits, but there are issues also which we are going to be looking at. So, the first issue is with fork and exec system calls. So you assume there is a process which has no threads, it is just a single thread process. It calls the fork, then a child process is going to be created. We know that is how fork system call works. But if it is a multi-thread process, so you have a process P1 and it has threads T1, T2, T3, and T2 is going to call fork, then in the newly created child process, will only that individual thread be duplicated, or will all three be duplicated, or is the child process going to have all three threads merged into one? So basically, when one thread of a multi-threaded process calls the fork system call, what is going to be the scenario in the child process? That is an ambiguity. Similarly, there is the same ambiguity with respect to exec and some other system calls. So the solution depends on OS architecture. So let me make it clear at this point that in this slide and the next 4 or 5 slides, we are not going to see how to solve these problems that rise because of multithreading. We are just going to see that there are certain ambiguities, there are certain confusions which rise. So it might not make complete sense to discuss a problem without putting forth a solution. But the idea here is not to debate whether multithreading is good or bad or how to overcome its cons. It is just to know the plus points and the minus points, so to speak. So the plus points we already discussed, the minus points we are discussing right now, and it is not like there is no solution for any of these. Of course, there have been workarounds have been developed. We are not going to go into the technicalities of those because that is not the idea of the operating systems course. We'll just see that these issues exist. So fork and exec system calls is one common issue because when one thread of a process calls the fork system call, it might the child might either duplicate all the threads or only that particular thread, or there are different ways in which it can happen. So there is this ambiguity. How is it resolved? It depends on OS architecture. So most of the problems you will see in the next few slides, the solution is OS dependent. So it depends on how the code is written in your OS. So in some operating systems, the code might be defined in such a way that the new process will duplicate all threads. In some others, it might be defined such that only that particular thread which calls the fork system call will be duplicated, and so on and so forth.